Nostalgia. Where do I begin? Well, I guess its definition might be a good place to start. It is described as a sentimental, longing, or wistful affection for the period in the past. Once believed by scientists to be a symptom of depression, nostalgia has rapidly transformed into something that is now looked upon in a positive light. Heck, I would even go as far to say as nostalgia is now something we idolise, thanks to its portrayal in the media. As much as I would love to say more on the topic, that's probably as far as I can confidently go without being more educated. I admittedly have no background in psychology whatsoever, so please take what I say with a pinch of salt, as I'm just some unqualified guy who finds this stuff interesting. I also want to note that a lot of the things I discussed in this video are just my opinion, and they have not been proven as fact, so feel free to either agree or disagree. It's undeniable that one of the strongest ways to feel nostalgia is through music. One of the most common ways to feel a sense of it is by listening to a song that we've listened to as children. Simply, the song acts almost like a time capsule, and whenever the music is listened to, the brain knows to associate that music with the past. I don't know if this is true, but I assume that this is one of the advantages music has over other forms of media when it comes to nostalgia, because music is certainly one of the easiest things to remember, thanks to its catchy melodies and deep emotions we feel when we listen to it. Even if the music hasn't specifically done anything clever or emotional, our brains still manage to dig up memories about it. That's just the power of music. So now we know about nostalgia and how music mostly creates it, what's all this deal about Toby Fox? Well, the reason I'm making this video is because of my experience I had whilst playing Deltarune Chapter 2. If you couldn't already tell, nostalgia has been something that has been prominent throughout my life. I somehow managed to become nostalgic for literally everything in the past, even if the event itself was not that great. Even so, I was still shocked by the amount of nostalgia I felt while playing the game. It felt incredible, but sad at the same time. When looking back, it's easy to see why this game is a nostalgia trap. You play a child in a small village who lives in a cozy home attending a primary school where everyone knows everyone. Even in the dark world, the identity of friendship and kindness still prevails. This all culminates to what I always feel like is one of those childhood adventures you would go on with your friends on the weekend. You know, the ones where you'd go into the forest and walk for hours until you get to the next town over. Anyways, nostalgia works very differently for each individual person, but you get the point. The game is good at reeling up childhood memories from your brain. Even though I enjoyed every aspect of the game, the music is what I'm really here to talk about. The music in Deltarune goes against my previously mentioned way of creating nostalgia. Unless anyone listening to this is literally a 1-year-old, Deltarune is obviously not a game we played in our childhoods, which means nostalgia cannot be created by simply listening to it after a couple of years. Instead, the music succeeds heavily on what I believe are the two most important aspects of making nostalgic music, which are in my opinion, drumroll please, the melodic theme and timbre. Let's take a look at a piece of music which nails both of these, My Castle Town. I really like this piece, and I listened to it on repeat when I first heard it. I actually want to talk about timbre first because I think it's a standout part of this piece, and also just because it's normally the more uncommon element that is musically discussed. In case you didn't know, the definition of timbre is the character or quality of a musical sound or voice as distinct from its pitch or intensity. Basically, it's just a fancy way to say how the notes sound. When you listen to My Castle Town, the first thing that immediately jumps out to you is the timbre of the piano. It doesn't sound normal at all. In fact, it sounds as if someone has stuffed it with a duvet. As stupid as this sounds, this is pretty much what has been done. After reading a lot of the YouTube comments underneath the official soundtrack video, it seems unclear whether this is a real recording with lots of post-performance work or an artificial sound completely. However, what is abundantly clear to me is that Toby Fox made the piano sound like the dampener pedals have been pressed down. There are two types of pedal on the piano which can reduce the sound in different ways. One is called the CORDA pedal, and the other is just called the practice pedal. The CORDA pedal, often known as the soft pedal on the piano, translates to one string, which exactly describes how the pedal works. In simple terms, pressing the pedal down slightly shifts all the hammers from their original position, which only makes the hammers strike one out of the 3 potential strings. This slightly quietens the volume of the piano, and also makes the sound slightly thinner. This has been used by various composers like Debussy, however, it is still rarely used in most compositions. However, this is actually not the sound Toby Fox is recreating. Toby Fox actually went for the almost never used practice pedal sound when writing this piece, which is hilarious but at the same time quite tasteful in my opinion. The practice pedal pretty much does what it says on the tin. Normally used for practice, the pedal would heavily muffle your sound, dampening it and creating a soft, soothing texture. Funnily enough, it isn't even included on grand pianos, as I guess the piano makers thought that if you could afford a grand piano, then you probably would live in a castle and that annoying your neighbours wouldn't be an issue you would face, unlike all those poor peasants on their upright pianos. Even though the pedal technically isn't meant for performance, I think it does a great job of bringing back nostalgia, and that this pedal should actually be used more often. The warming and muffled sound bring up memories of innocence, lack of responsibility, and friends and relationships. I think that a way to visualise this pedal would be comparing it to a blanket of warmth protecting you from the outside, cold world, or maybe like a glass conservatory roof protecting its dweller from the rain. When looking at it like that, it's actually very similar to the area itself, as the castle town provides a safe place for Chris to learn to battle and explore with their friends, before leaving for the cyberworld. Other things that this may sound like to you are on the screen now. However, there is another reason why the piano part sounds soothing. Take another listen to the music and see if you can pick it out. Although really subtle, Toby Fox adds the gentlest percussive clicks, which are from the pressing of the piano keys. I'm going to say the dreaded word now, but this is very similar to what we listen to in ASMR. I think there's really something to say about humans' relationships to the distant percussive sounds like these ones. Many people claim that sounds like these help them to relax or focus, possibly because the sounds of something in the background remind them that they're not alone, which can be comforting in a strange way. Studies have shown that sounds like these often slow people's heart rate too. The second device that I think is almost equally as important as the timbre is the use of melody, more specifically how Toby Fox handles themes. My Castle Town starts with what I believe is a completely original melody. If it is not original, then it has been bent and moulded in such a way that it stands on its own identity anyway. However, after 16 bars we hear an old melody return. We know this theme as The Legend, and it was pretty much used as the main theme in Deltarune Chapter 1, and was played everywhere. There is pretty much no difference in My Castle Town's rendition other than some of the notes have been augmented, but I think this is just to make the melody fit nicely in the 3/4 time signature, rather than the original 4/4. As confusing as it is, an augmented melody has nothing to do with an augmented chord. Instead of raising the chord to create evenly spaced major thirds, augmenting a melody simply means to double the note lengths. And even though this has nothing to do with the topic, yes, you can also diminish a melody, which is done by, you guessed it, halving the note lengths. As you can hear, the legend theme in My Castle Town isn't truly augmented, with only some of the notes being lengthened, but I thought it would be fun to mention these fairly unheard of terms anyway. So, what is nostalgic about the legend theme, other than it just being already in our heads? Well, to do that, we're going to take a look at Arnold Schoenberg's guide to writing good themes. Trust me, if there is anyone who knows how to write music, it's Schoenberg. His book on composition says a lot of things, but he mentions that one of the most important aspects of a good theme or melody is the proper handling of intervals, more importantly, sparing but flavourful use of unnatural and wide ones. In most tunes we listen to, especially in pop music, the melody is mostly just scalic. In interval terms, that means they mostly move up and down in seconds. Jumps of thirds are also quite common, however bigger jumps are normally a rarity. This is done for a logical reason. Jumping up and down and everywhere just creates chaos and gives our ear nothing to grip onto. However, the point in which a melody actually does jump is often the most memorable and cherished part of a piece of music. I mean, look at Megalovania. The most memorable part is the bit at the very start which has a huge jump of an octave. Nearly every tune that is widely remembered by everyone usually has a boiling point of one unusual interval that we aren't introduced to until that moment. This is the exact same in My Castle Town, the texture starts to pick up in the Legends theme, and the right hand goes from playing a C and a G to a G and a C above it. Not only are these intervals together both perfect intervals, being a perfect fifth and a perfect four respectively, but they also move in parallel motion, something that Mr. Johann Bach would not approve of back in his day. These perfect intervals sound vast and open, almost adventurous, but should be used sparingly to avoid monotony. In other words, Toby Fox waited until the perfect time to use these, and the result of it, combined with his unusual use of timbre, creates an incredibly recognisable and nostalgic piece of music. Thanks for watching, guys. I had lots of fun making this video. Honestly, it's just nice to have somewhere to spread my thoughts into the open in a way that challenges me to think. I know my theoretical knowledge isn't too great, which is why I'm going to be sticking to more abstract concepts rather than factual ones for now. But as I get better, hopefully I should be able to create more factual based videos with confidence. If you haven't already subscribed, please feel free to do so. It would mean a lot to me, and hopefully I'll be uploading more in the future. Thanks for watching. Peace.